Okay, so today there's an interesting topic, which is negative energy and thoughts and emotions, and that was prompted by actually a very wise quote that I read the other day. And what it is that there's no such thing. Let me explain, right? Now, the thing is about, so this negative and positive thing, it's a useful descriptive word, but when you're actually looking at your own mind, all messages from the mind are valid. So all thoughts and emotions, they're valid. And I know that a lot of them are nonsense, right? But what they're doing is they're telling you something. Yeah. So let's say I feel rubbish. Okay, I feel rubbish. Let's say there's a person that I interact with, or there's a thing that I do, or there's a place that I go, or there's something that in my life that whenever I encounter it, it's unsatisfactory. Well, what's happening there is is a thing called the body mind. This is an ancient Hindu concept, and it's a really useful thing to keep in mind. Yeah. The body mind, which is the combination of the mind, the brain, and the body, is sending you messages. It's sending you messages all the time. You might not be able to pick up a lot of them for a whole bundle of reasons, but there's a constant train of messages. And if you get a message that causes you to suffer, it's telling you one of two things. It's telling you that that thing is either inconsistent with something else that you believe to be true, or it's inconsistent with your external reality. So now, if you take difficult people as a perfect example of this, there will always be difficult people, and they difficult people will very often always be difficult, and largely there's nothing to be done about that. So the whole process of dealing with difficult people becomes about how you respond and mitigating that. Over time, as you build a map of your reality that is consistent, then what will happen is your capacity to deal with that sort of thing and the amount of stress that you experience will diminish. And it's the same with difficult people. Once you develop a capacity to deal with them, then the suffering you experience will diminish. And that's not to say you're never going to have conflict, because that's just an inevitable part of life. But the thing that won't happen is it won't take over your mind. It won't be stuck in your head consistently. So there's a process that's going on between us and our external environment, and what that is we're constantly testing our version of reality against the external world. I'll give you an example. What I do, teaching meditation. So I get up and I say something like that, the thing that I've just said. And what actually happens is if it's so far away from what other people expect and believe, I'm going to get a lot of pushback. And that pushback will result in suffering. And so subsequently, there's this process. You're asserting your perspective, your personal reality, and saying, this is how things are in my life, in my mind. This is what I find from other people. This is what I find from my experience. And then you're sharing that. And this is what basically is authenticity. And if that conflicts with somebody else's reality, you're going to know all about it, which is why this is such a wonderful thing to do. I'm so privileged to be able to do this. And so then what happens is you need to clarify that. Now, there's one of two things happening here. That person could be living in a fantasy bubble of their own creation, or they could be drinking from the well of some really unhelpful set of beliefs that they're stuck with. And you'll discover that because you'll get different responses from different people. So let's say you've got person A and person B. You make an assertion. Person A, it all becomes difficult and uncomfortable. Person B, it doesn't. What it's telling you is it's not you, right? It's not you. If it was you, you'd upset both of them, and you would be upset by the experience of experiencing what you get back to from them. So this is basically learning. It's learning, and this is exactly what's happening in the mind. Yeah, this is the thoughts and emotions. Your body mind is sending you messages. And if the message is suffering, then something in your beliefs, something that you believe, isn't consistent. It's either inconsistent with everything else you believe, or it's inconsistent with the external reality. And that's exactly what suffering is, always. And so what does that mean? What that means is that it's actually all part of life. And is it negative? Is any of that negative? What's unhelpful about discovering that what you believe isn't true? Yeah? It's uncomfortable, yeah, but actually it's what you want. Yeah? So, and I mean, that applies right the way across the board. When it gets really difficult for individuals, it's because the set of beliefs they have been built up over a long period of time. They might be confirmed to them by other people, and it becomes very, very solid and almost impossible to work with, because it all becomes interconnected. The fact is that if you sit down and follow the breath, all of this comes into your mind. Yeah? You become aware of all of this. This is the power of meditation, is it? It's like a wash, rinse, repeat cycle for all of the unhelpful stuff and helpful stuff in your life. And so when you sit, really there's nowhere to hide from any of that, because it will fill your mind up. And that's why there's so many different meditation techniques. Ultimately, they're all basically one thing. They're like a tap. And what you're doing is it's a tap on your suffering. So if you get what I call a busy meditation technique, there's nothing busier than chanting, right? Chanting's quite popular. My students are a little bit too British to sit in a room chanting and ringing bells and so on. But when you do that, your mind becomes filled with this chanting. What happens is the mind's going yada, 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 chanting. All you're doing is chanting, right? And then yada, 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 yada. But it's a different, the yada, yada's calmer. And you'll still notice thoughts appearing in your mind. But what you're doing is you're super distracting yourself from those by focusing on maintaining the chant. And it's a little bit less with mantras, and it's not there at all when you follow the breath. So that you need to find the way of turning these internal suffering messages down to the point where you can gain what you learn from them, from all of these negative messages, negative emotions, negative thoughts, negative people, and so on and so forth. And you do that by maintaining your truth and accepting the fact that it's often your truth will not be true, and then learning from that and then moving on. And what actually happens is, instead of you creating a whole new set of beliefs to replace the old set of beliefs, what happens is the beliefs just go away. They just go away. And unfortunately, the religions, that's exactly what they do. Set of beliefs A, unhelpful. Set of beliefs B might be more helpful, but you're just replacing another set of beliefs. When you're meditating, you're doing personal secular meditation. You're looking at your own mind. It's beliefs. Bosh. Imagine how easy life would be if you didn't believe anything. Didn't believe how important it is what somebody else thinks about you. Didn't believe how important it is that you're successful or a failure, or how you're perceived or what you're thought about. This is the Kevlar vest that meditation brings, but it only brings it through this wash, rinse, repeat cycle of experiencing what we perceive to be negative experiences that we want to replace with positive experiences, but they are actually what we need to learn from. And of course, then there are other people, and they'll never learn. They'll never learn. They'll never sit down, scrutinize anything that they believe, and so they're stuck, and they're stuck in their suffering, and there's nothing you can do about that. And then it's about you, and how do you respond to their suffering and their confusion. And that's a thing to be learned through this same process. So you get the same process internally, what you believe, and then what other people believe. Wash, rinse, repeat. Stick with it. Stick with the meditation. Okay, so that's actually got nothing to do with the meditations that I'm going to teach today. There's a couple of things that I need to mention. If you go on to the 2020meditation.com website, you'll see there's two what I call short courses there. So just go to the menu, go down short courses. One of them is on sleep, and the other one is on resilience. And what they are is a little collection of podcasts and videos, mainly podcasts, because they're easier to consume. You just plug it in as you go around your day. And so they do what they say on the tin. One is all about improving your sleep, and the other is all about mindfulness-based resilience, basically. So there's that. And the last podcast that I produced, I'm going to produce another one this weekend. The last podcast I produced was the sleep meditation, and that's found in one of those short courses. Okay, so now for the meditations. And what I'm going to do today is what I call the modern mind meditation. And of course, the modern mind doesn't meditate. All it does is chatter. Good, bad, right, wrong, fair, unfair, good, it's got a view on everything, right? The best way to deal with it is to notice it. That's it. There it is. Chat, chat, chat. But it's easy to say that. And so what this meditation is designed to do is to help us do that. Notice the internal chatter, the emotions, without actually being driven by them and causing us to respond. Okay, so now here's the thing. This is the present moment. The present moment is in the sound of the bell. If you notice the sound of the bell moving through time. So if you close your eyes, notice the sound of the bell moving through time. So now when the sound of the bell's gone, there are other sounds. If there's no sound, so sometimes there's sound, sometimes there isn't. Some people say to me, you teach this listening exercise, and where I meditate there's no sound. Don't meditate in quiet places. In a city of many millions of people, it will limit your capacity. Wean yourself onto meditating in noisy places. But in the interim, for those people for whom there is no sound, I'm going to sound the bell in a moment. Notice what your mind's doing. It's waiting for the sound of the bell. There's no sound, and it's just listening and waiting for the sound of the bell. That's what you do when there's no sound. When there is sound, you're noticing it. I'm not going to ring the bell. That was an exercise to bring you to the place of waiting and listening. And that's what this is actually all about. It isn't about the sounds, so there don't have to be any. And you're waiting for the next sound throughout this. And listening. And noticing what sounds there are moving through time. And this is an almost universally frictionless experience. So there's nothing, notice there's no goals, no expectations, nothing to be done. It's neither good nor bad. You're noticing the present moment, moving through time. And the same effects can be gained by noticing the movement of the belly. You're noticing the movement of the belly, rising and falling. And if you wish, you can label it. You're noting the movement of the belly. Belly rising, belly falling. and the sounds are still there, or in the absence of any sound, the movement of the present moment through time is still there. And you listening for the next sound, listening and waiting, is all still there. And thoughts will arise. And thoughts will subside. Whatever arises as a thought also subsides as a thought. Just like waves crashing on a beach, washing up, rolling away. And there's the sound of my voice. And my words. So there are all these things moving, through, time. And this is what I refer to as a hubbub. There's a hubbub, which is what happens when you go into a room and you listen and you can't hear a conversation because so many people all speaking at the same time. The sounds, the movement of the belly, my words, your thoughts, all moving through time. And there's nothing to be done. I'm not going to tell you whether to focus on one or the other, or notice them all, or notice none of them, or let your mind do one thing or another. There's nothing to be done. You're just noticing. The movement of the present moment. Through time. Just practice this for a little while. And so one of my many exercises when I'm teaching a group is to ask people what is in the sound of the bell. So here it is, bell. And the answers I get are, there's ringing, there's a musical note, there's a variation in the musical note, there's a tone, there's vibration, there's sound. And then the question that I have is, well, what's not in the sound of the bell? Generally, nobody's quite sure what answer I might be asking, but the answer's all the same. There's no fear, there's no anger, there's no shame, there's no guilt, there's no resentment, there's no suffering. And this is what we're finding. But this is the ultimate reality, the sensory experience of the present moment. What you can see, hear, smell, touch and taste. Your thoughts, your emotions. There's nothing more real than the present moment. And in this real present moment, where's the suffering? Where's the confusion? Where's the doubt? Where's the shame? All of these doesn't exist. It just exists in the messages of the mind, especially if we believe them. So nothing wrong with thought. Don't fall into the trap of believing it. So noticing the belly rising and falling. So in your mind, rising, falling, rising, falling. Notice the movement of my words through time. Notice the thoughts. Notice whatever sensations there are. And rather than listening to the thoughts, notice the thoughts moving through time. Notice how you feel. Notice the feeling moving through time. And either listen to the flow of sound, the traffic, the people's voices, the movements, the birds, whatever it might happen to be. Notice that moving through time. As we finish the meditation, finally notice the sound of the bell moving through time. That's what I call the modern mind meditation, and we understand and understand the mind, in this case, very Eastern way, not by listening to the chatter, but by noting its absence. So what is there without the yada yada, the chitter chatter in the mind? Well, what's there is diminishingly small, but it's reality. What we can see, hear, smell, touch, taste, the thoughts, the emotions, whatever's happening externally, whatever somebody else is experiencing that they're transmitting to us, that we're noticing empathically or through their words, they're describing it, whatever it happens to be. All of this happening, lots and lots and lots of it. This is it. This is the present moment, and it's at the absence of the mind for many people is the reason they keep coming back to this. And that's the way that you learn about the mind. One of the many ways is by noticing that it's not always there. And what's the difference? Is it better? Okay. So that's it. I think I squished the audio issues that I had at the last session, for which I apologise greatly. And you may have noticed, those of you that attended that this is also largely the same meditation that I did, which is what I call the modern mind meditation. So what I'll probably do is put this on a podcast, and you'll be notified through the usual channels, email, social media, I'll also update the podcast page on the 2020 meditation website, where you can go, and all of the meditations that I've taught in 2020, I think there's about 18, no, it's 2021, so I think this will be 22. You can access them from there, and there's also the episode notes there, so you can go on to the 2020meditation.com/podcasts, or just go there from the menu, and you'll be able to access the podcasts and all of the episode notes, and it's easier to read them on there than it is on your device. And you click a button or click a link, and that theoretically should open it up in your podcast app, and you can listen to it. And then remember the two short courses that are produced as well. They're also in the menu of 2020meditation.com. So I'm reasonably busy. Okay, so bless you all, and have a great weekend. And I'll be back at 7 p.m. London time tomorrow night, Sunday night, with another online meditation class. And I hope you can all join me. Thank you.